Now to the prosecution's closing arguments in the sex trafficking and racketeering case against Sean Diddy Combs. Jurors in the Manhattan courtroom hearing a systematic rundown of the evidence and allegations against the mogul, who denies all charges. And just a warning, this story contains accounts, descriptions, and visual content of actual or alleged events that some may find disturbing.
Today, federal prosecutors in New York wrapped up their case against Sean Diddy Combs in the explosive trial that has captivated much of the world.
The case against Sean Combs has been heart-wrenching, shocking, disturbing.
It's been more than 6 weeks of sexually explicit, graphic, and emotional testimony, with 34 witnesses taking the stand and over 1,000 exhibits.
We saw a different side of Sean Combs, not the mogul or the rapper or the industry leader, but someone who had very disturbing tendencies towards women and the people around him.
Combs is charged with sex trafficking, racketeering, conspiracy, and transportation to engage in prostitution. He has pleaded not guilty. Combs' family and friends by his side in the courtroom today, including several of his children, his mother, and longtime confidants, standing by the disgraced media mogul as the case nears its end.
Courtroom was packed for the closing argument by the prosecutor. For the first time since the beginning of the trial, all 6 of Sean Combs' children were there. His mother, at one point, he gestured to the family row, urging them to squeeze together to make room. And when Sean Combs entered court, he put a hand over his heart, a gesture of love and affection towards his family.
Combs recently exercised his right not to testify in his own defense, telling the judge, "That is my decision with my lawyers."
He seemed very calm, relaxed, in his powder blue sweater and button-down shirt underneath.
Today, the prosecution spent nearly 5 hours trying to convince a jury of 8 men and 4 women, ranging in ages from 30 to 74, that one of hip-hop's most acclaimed figures coerced women into drug-fueled sexual marathons with male escorts known as freak-offs.
The prosecutor asked the jury to imagine being a woman in this situation who was forced to have sex for hours in uncomfortable positions while they might have a urinary tract infection. This was painful, and prosecutors said it was unwanted.
In their final push, prosecutors aimed to show Combs orchestrated travel across state lines, presenting flight records and invoices as evidence that Combs coordinated cross-state travel for sex workers, aiming to prove he was running a criminal enterprise. Diddy's defense arguing the sexual encounters were consensual and not coerced, saying the rapper lived a swinger lifestyle. Combs' defense attorney, Tenny Garrigo, said in her opening statement that may not be what you like to do in your bedroom, but you're not here to judge him for his sexual preferences. She later added, being a willing participant in your own sex life is not sex trafficking. As part of the prosecution's exhibits, the jury heard a voice memo from Combs to an ex-girlfriend and one of the women accusing him of sex trafficking, who testified under the pseudonym Jane. Prosecutors say the message exhibits Combs allegedly pressuring her into sex by threatening to withhold financial support.
I ain't trying to go back and forth with no woman, you know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, I ain't got no time for games. Me and you could be mad, I could have a spat, we could have whatever, then after that you better get on your job.
The prosecution also calling Combs the leader of a criminal enterprise. He doesn't take no for an answer. The defendant used power, violence, and fear to get what he wanted, adding, it's his kingdom. Everyone was there to serve him.
In its closing argument, the prosecution was able to focus the jury on what they say is the strong evidence that Sean Combs sex trafficked women, and it was a devastating portrait.
Over the weeks, the jury heard from former employees, insiders from the music industry, and close associates. The high-profile trial also drew major star power, with Kanye West making a brief courthouse appearance, and big names like Usher and Michael B. Jordan mentioned throughout testimony. Kid Cudi even took the stand to testify. Diddy was once at the pinnacle of the music industry and pop culture, but cracks in Combs' glamorous mogul persona began when his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura filed a civil lawsuit against him in 2023, which was settled the next day for $20 million without admitting wrongdoing. Then, 6 months later, this graphic, abusive video from a hotel surveillance camera, footage that would later be used as evidence in court. Though Combs first denied all wrongdoing, after CNN released the video, he put out a statement on social media.
I hit rock bottom, but I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable.
But for Combs, that was just the beginning. The details of that civil lawsuit and that abusive video leading to the federal investigation, his arrest, and now his ongoing trial. Over 4 emotional days of testimony, Cassie described in detail the alleged abuse, including physical assaults, threats, and instances of alleged forced sex, which she testified Combs referred to as freak-offs.
Cassie is the heart and the essence of this trial. Without her or the Intercontinental video, there might not be a case here. Her testimony was powerful. It truly showed the elements of sex trafficking. It showed also some of the repercussions or what happens when an individual is allegedly trafficked.
Cassie testified how Combs initially proposed encounters that he called voyeurism, where he would watch me have intercourse and sexual activity with a third party, specifically another man, all within the first year of their relationship. Cassie testifies she continued to participate in freak-offs. I knew it wasn't something I wanted to be doing, but I was in love and wanting to make him happy. I didn't feel like I had much of a choice, didn't really know what no could turn into. Cassie said the freak-offs became so frequent they became weekly events. In their cross-examination, defense attorneys tried to portray Cassie as a willing participant in a consensual relationship, presenting text messages that seemingly show Cassie at times initiating the freak-offs. At one point texting, "Freak off with a girl?" Combs responding, "What makes you want to do that?" But it was another witness, an ex-girlfriend under the pseudonym Jane, who tearfully described her tumultuous 3-year relationship with Combs, which began in 2021 and ended when he got arrested in 2024. Jane testified she also experienced similar sexual demands that Cassie Ventura testified to. Days-long hotel nights with male sex workers, fueled by drugs and baby oil while Combs watched.
Her testimony has really struck a chord. Not just her testimony standalone, her testimony buttresses, corroborates everything Cassie Ventura said. These women, they were beaten, they were threatened.
Along with Cassie, Jane is another alleged victim here, and her testimony doesn't just carry the allegation of sex trafficking, it also carries the allegation of transportation to engage in prostitution. I think the connection and also the similarities between the two show to the jury that potentially this is not a mistake. This is a scheme or course of conduct, and I use those words because that's how you describe a RICO.
In closing arguments, the prosecution showed a text message thread between Jane and Combs' former chief of staff, Christina Cora. Jane claims Combs threatened her if she did not participate in hotel nights. Jane writing, "He just threatened me about my sex tapes that he has of me. He said that he would expose me and send them to my baby daddy." Tomorrow, the defense makes their final case to the jury.
The defense called no witnesses, relying only on cross-examination, and expect the defense to argue that the women federal prosecutors said were trafficked were not victims, but long-term girlfriends who were in relationships with Sean Combs because they loved him and because they were willing to participate in his polyamorous lifestyle.
The government's case was very compelling. During closing argument, AUSA Slavic stood just feet away from the jury, giving her closing argument. And at times, they seemed very entranced with what she was saying, taking notes. But other times, the jury seemed to look away, uninterested in what she was saying or somewhat skeptical in the way that she defined or articulated how facts came into this case. That may be the opening for the defense to raise reasonable doubt in how they present their facts tomorrow.
We'll, of course, continue to follow this trial.